I wanted to speak to franchisees themselves, like, you know, because they're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones that have been in it for X amount of time, and doing that and going out with those guys and sitting down with them and actually speaking to them about it, like that was the biggest benefit to me. And
so welcome back to the Gyms podcast. We're with another building inspector here, which is Laura. So Laura's come down from Sydney, which we appreciate you as well. And we've had you actually on the podcast before and done some interviews up in Sydney when we were shooting a commercial. So yeah, it'd be great to see you again.
Yeah, I had so much fun last time, so I thought I'd make a comeback, do the comeback tour. So
long way to come.
It is a long way to come. Red eye flight, yeah.
Yeah. So let's now talk about before gyms. What were you doing?
So before gyms, I was, I still am an accredited building certifier in New South Wales. So I was doing that. My background was both in local government for about 9 years, and then I went to the private sector. So really my bread and butter was working on sort of custom high-end residential sort of space. So lots of stress, lots of hours, highly regulated environment. Worked in that for many years. Look, it was great, really enjoyed it, learnt everything I know. But I guess, came to a point where, to put it bluntly, I was burnt out and wanted to be able to use my skill set that I had in a manner that was maybe a little bit more helpful to people and a bit more proactive. Sometimes as a certifier, it's not the easiest job. You're pretty much going around with a stick kind of telling people what's not right, what doesn't comply, okay? And, whilst I feel like I was very good at it, I feel like I am able to now use my skill set to help people on their property journey as opposed to, that other aspect of it. So
awesome. So in your research process, what were you looking at? Was it just gyms or other things as well, or what were you...
Yeah, I still remember the day I actually, I was in Bondi on a very high-end job, and it was a bit of a difficult builder, a bit of a difficult job, lots of complaints going on from neighbouring properties and things like that. And I'd kind of just had enough. And I remember calling Sammy, our franchisor, and I rang through the call centre, and I just needed something else. I needed another avenue to kind of, again, use my skill set, but in another way. And from that point forward, he just made it so simple. The process kind of started from there. The ball was rolling, felt supported the whole way, and haven't really looked back, to be honest. So.
Now, did you do the training in person or were you online?
In person.
Yeah. And how was that?
Yep, training was great. I dragged my brother along. I remember my brother's a builder, so needed him to kind of, just do his thing and bit of due diligence, I guess. So I was wary going into it. Just had to make sure it wasn't a cult from everything else that I'd heard. So, we came down here. The training was great. Not just, learning a bit about the gym's model and things like that was really good. But then the actual, divisional training was quite hands-on, which I really liked. Getting an idea of how things are done. This was a new space to me, new sort of area. And an emerging area, it's one that's been around for a long time, but it's a changing space. It's one that's growing, which I wanted to really be a part of, I guess. And so it's really good. Really
during the divisional training, what sort of stuff is shown? Is it just obviously how to use the app? There's obviously systems and processes in place, but what sort of things do they show you at the divisional? Yeah,
so it's quite hands-on. Yeah, so you go through those procedural things, I guess, and the system side of things, but you're also going out on site and actually doing building inspections, going through things together. And that was really helpful to me. And you're also meeting people that are from different backgrounds and different industries, and you're seeing how you're going to integrate into that and whether it's a good fit for you, because that's the most important thing, right, when you're coming into this type of thing. Very hands-on. You're actually doing inspections, and then, you're basically, generating reports and things like that and making sure you're in line with that. Really with gyms, we're above that minimum standard as opposed to what else is out there in the market. So it's really setting a benchmark, I guess, is what that week was about, and setting the standard for yourself and what's around you.
Real quickly before we move on, I know your franchisor is actually one of the presenters in the generic training. What did you give him a good, excellent rating in the survey we do?
He got a 0 out of 5 for that one. No. He got a 5 out of 5. That was one of the best ones, to be honest.
Yes.
Don't tell him I said that, but it's all value you're giving to the clients. It's all the service. What service are you providing to people at the end of the day? And the monetary stuff comes. That's all subsequent. That all comes if you're doing a good job, really. So we learnt fundamentals about how to market, how to sell, how to really be of value to people, I guess, is what you can say. So And I like that was the ethos. I like that the ethos was, that I guess givers gain, how much, what can you do for people? And everything sort of comes back in return for you. So, and that really I guess the division is how we operate. We all help each other. If I'm on leave and I need someone to help out a client one of my good clients, I can trust that they're in good hands, and that was really important to me coming into it. I was going to go out on my own and start a certification company, and I would have been on my own solo. And the big thing that drew me to the gym side of things as a franchisee was that I would have that support around me, have that balance, have that ability to take time off if I needed to. So that was really important to me.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast, and sorry for the interruption. This is the host, Joel Kleber. I've got a real quick favour to ask you. We've had more than 50,000 downloads across our podcast over the years, but not many reviews. So we just need people to take the time to do us a favour. And if you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Really helps the show. Now back to the podcast. Now, women in the industry, because how many women are there in the JBI team at the moment? Obviously, there's yourself.
That's a good question.
I think there's two. So it's just yourself and another franchisee. So how does that go? And it's a pretty, obviously, male-dominated industry building, I guess. So how have you found that?
I'll be really honest with you. I don't think about it too much. I just go about my day and I go about what I do. I've always worked in male-dominated industries, I guess, in construction. Look, I wish I had seen someone like me in my space. That's the gap, okay? And it's representation. So it's important, I think, that the younger people coming through see someone in a position that they might want to do down the track. And that's where I didn't see that. You know what I mean? So if I can somewhat be that, and if someone stumbles across this video, like, that's a great thing for me. And that's why I like doing these types of things, to hopefully inspire someone else that might be thinking about this, who's in one of these sort of industries, that this is a viable and a really great space to work in. So I love it. I think in some ways it's a benefit being a woman.
I was going to say that to you. I think clients would love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I usually get the, so what time's the inspector going to be here? And I'm like, no, it's actually me coming out. Or they think I'm the receptionist. They think I'm admin. But it's a pleasant surprise when I'm out there, So I like that. I like being that bit of not a novelty, not that, but just something a bit different than they're used to. I'm also very, very small. I'm the size of a hobbit. So my one of the things I say on the phone to my clients is that, like, I can get to a lot of places that a lot of big burly builders can't get to. And so termites love those kind of areas, and dodgy little building things are usually in those areas that are difficult to get to. So
I think particularly women customers as well, I would think would love it. Like, it'd be a massive point of difference.
Yeah, I think women bring a certain level of maybe empathy and things like that to certain trades as well, and certain things in this space. But look, at the end of the day, it's about doing a good job. But as I said, it's about seeing more women doing things in this role, and especially just in construction, not just in inspector roles and things like that. There's definitely more women in certification now, which is great. I saw a massive change in that. Hopefully this is the same thing that kind of follows through. But even in trades, like, I remember when I first started, it would be very rare to see a female on a job site. Most builders on job sites, I was the first woman that they've seen ever. So, but now, it was like a different species. But now, you go out to job sites and it's super common to see women, which is great. And we want to see more of that. We want diversity, because everyone brings that to the playing field. The more diversity you have, the more knowledge you have.
Yeah, I think it's massive win for customers. If you're a client and if you're a lady client, I think it's an absolute massive win. And hopefully we see more women in Jim's divisions, typically male dominated, I guess. Start seeing this as a viable option, and a major advantage if you are coming in to do it.
Yep, 100%.
But now, we spoke about last time, actually, our other interview. It's a bit of time's passed now. So the swimming pool certification. Do you want to talk a bit about that and how you've been heading that up?
Yeah, 100%. So that's really exciting. So we are building the back end of that at the moment. Swimming pool certification and compliance in New South Wales is obviously very important. It's a space that's grown over the last 10 years with the introduction of, statewide swimming pool registers and mandatory certification and things like that. So for anyone that doesn't know, basically in New South Wales, if you're selling a property with a swimming pool, you must attach a certificate of compliance or non-compliance to the contract of sale. Okay, if you're not doing that from a due diligence point of view, the purchaser has the right to rescind the contract and you lose your deposit. Okay, so it's super important. Similar, if you're leasing a property, you must have a certificate of compliance, basically to make sure that that property, that the barrier complies, it's safe, it's compliant to restrict access for kids. We're trying to reduce drownings and near drowning events. I've seen firsthand, I've had to go to coroner's court 6 times to give expert advice on infant drownings. It's not a fun place to be. It's very sad. It's happening in people's backyard. It's silent, and the families just simply don't recover. So I'm really, really passionate about swimming pool safety. I think that's going to be a really good space for us to grow as a division, and at the end of the day, help make more pools compliant and safer. So,
well, I take my daughter's swimming class, and she's 14 months, and they have a thing on the wall which is about the number of drownings there've been in the last 2 years. I think it's like 300 plus. So it's quite a large number. Well, I appreciate this now. Being a dad, because we take our daughter to go to the early swimming, right? So I understand how important it is, and they have on the wall about the number of drowning deaths a year. I don't think people realise how unfortunately common it is. I think it's like 300 over 2 years or something like that. So it's quite a common occurrence, unfortunately, isn't it?
Yeah, sadly it is. And as I said, it's in people's backyards, so you take for granted that there's a fence there, it's going to stop a child. But the reality is, even just a gate, an access gate to a pool can have 12 to 13 non-compliances. One of the most important being, that gate needs to self-close and self-latch from all positions. So again, there's that education component where we're trying to, teach people and educate people that is the most important part of a gate. You can spend $7 million on a property, and $10,000 to $20,000 on a pool fence. If that gate doesn't self-close and self-latch, there's a hazard there for a small child, and the repercussions can be obviously very tragic. So, very passionate about that, and I'm really excited about how we can bring that into gyms. I've been working in that space myself, both certification and consulting for many, many years now. And anything we can do to make things safer for kids is always going to be great.
So I think people just assume that it's okay. Like they see the fence, yep, that's it, and they don't think anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's out of sight, out of mind. Right. And, kids replicate adult behaviours, so they're not necessarily climbing 1.8, colour-bond boundary fences, but they will go to the gate and they will, see if that gate's open or drag a nearby chair or things that are in non-climbable zones. So especially for, the big thing is new property owners, especially maybe immigrant families where they've never owned a pool before, okay, and they're coming into a property with a pool and they've got young kids. There's a hazard there. The stats show, and one of the drownings that I gave expert advice in was a very similar story. The family had just come from overseas, had never had a pool. The kids couldn't swim, unfortunately. And the stats show that within that first 3 to 4 months, that's the danger zone. That's the time when, kids are exploring and excited about being at the property, and you don't want that sort of thing happening, even whether it's a drowning or a near drowning, the results could be devastating. And for something that can be easily rectified, and maintaining a barrier, making sure it's compliant, these are easy things to be done to save, tragic outcomes. So,
yeah, because it sounds so obvious to me that this would be a big issue, but you don't really see it obviously advertised too much unless obviously there might be unfortunately a drowning death or something. Then it comes up and then it goes away. But it sounds like it's something where it should just be part of, pool fence have to get inspected.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think we've seen the stats and the drowning rates decrease in New South Wales, which is fantastic, particularly, and we're talking backyard pools, swimming pools, not so much oceans and rivers where they present different risk factors. But we've, with the introduction of these mandatory inspections, we have seen drowning rates reduce, and that's the goal. We want to get to zero because these deaths are avoidable. Drowning deaths are avoidable.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the property obsession with Australians, and obviously how many properties are being purchased. And obviously you don't have to. It's not a compulsory thing to get a building inspection, but do you want to talk about that aspect with it? Yeah,
look, as Australians, we love property. Okay, it's a big driver of our economy. It is, the quote unquote Australian dream, and I think that it's one of the biggest investments you're making in your lifetime. Why would you not want to protect that investment? Okay, whether you're a seasoned investor or a first home buyer, doing that due diligence and going that extra mile and making sure you're getting not just a report, but a quality report from someone who's spent the time, from someone who knows there's stuff about building, okay? Again, such an unregulated space that you want to make sure that you're getting an inspector that you trust and that can communicate things to you. And that, I think, is our edge with our gym's building inspection division. Communication is what it comes down to, okay? Buying a home is scary. Buying, especially for first home buyers, it's overwhelming, it's stressful. You're going to open homes, how much can you gather from a property in a 12-minute inspection where you've got an agent in your ear and you're smelling new paint and probably candles, and they're trying to maybe conceal defects that might be there. Why wouldn't you want to go to an expert that can give you as much knowledge about that property as possible to help make an informed decision? It's so important.
This might be a dumb question. When should someone then get you involved? So they're looking through realestate.com.au, they start attending these open homes and all that sort of stuff. When should they get you involved? What would be the best time? Look,
there's different strategies with this depending on your conveyancer and solicitor and how they want to attack things. My personal approach would be as early as possible. More often than not, we are engaged during that cooling off period, okay, whether that's 5 days or 10 days. The thing is, once, those contracts are exchanged, you're kind of in it. You can obviously back out of it, but you may lose your deposit. Obviously, if you're going in for an auction, you need to get all that done up front, because once it's done, it's done. So as early as possible, in my opinion, because you've got time to then obtain quotes if you need to. Say if we pick up, a major defect like rising damp or termites or anything like that, where you may want to get a secondary, a trade out or a specialist to go, okay, it's going to cost X amount, then you can factor that into your considerations for buying that property. So allowing enough time for that due diligence is super important. You really don't want to leave things to the last minute. It's already a stressful process. Make it a little bit less stressful, by getting your ducks in a row first, I guess.
And then what about the communication? You mentioned communication. So do you want to talk about the communication standards in your business, and what should a customer expect when they engage a building inspector? Yeah, sure.
So it starts from that first interaction, whether it's a lead coming through the call centre or a referral. It's really setting out the expectation of what we're going to be doing and what they're engaging us to do. So we talk about how we carry out an inspection. We talk about, yes, we do an inspection of the interior, the exterior, the roof void, the subfloor. We get to everywhere we possibly can, We talk about how long we're out there, okay? And usually most inspections are between 1 and 2 hours. And we talk about these things because when they're going and getting quotes from other providers, sometimes those things aren't the same. They may be there for 10, 15 minutes. So there's a difference in value there of what they're actually getting. Setting out those parameters is really important. And then we also outline the timeline for them. So generally it's same day service or next day service, or we're trying to get things done quickly, as I mentioned. So it's letting them know that we do the inspection, they have a report in their hands within 24 hours, and then we're arranging a time to go over things on the phone with them verbally. And that is the most important part of that process, in my opinion. For me, that is also the part that I enjoy the most. And it's the part most inspectors don't enjoy. Right. They hate getting on the phone and talking to clients. I love it. That's the part that's the frontline customer service to me. That's me talking to them about what they're buying. And really, it's plain English, okay? So sometimes the reports, they can put you to sleep, okay? Because they are in depth and they're there for a reason, okay? We've spent an hour, 2 hours. There's going to be things in that report. We try to keep it plain English, but we also, that verbal discussion is there to really go through things in detail with them and answer their questions. It's their opportunity to come to us and go, Laura, what's rising damp? And we can then explain that. And then obviously just ongoing support. So I always tell my clients, if you have a question 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the track, call me. Just get on the phone and call me. And I still have clients that do that, and I love that. That's good. If I can help resolve a problem for them or refer them to one of my trusted trades, then that's a great outcome, because it's not just about identifying defects. It's about showing them how to get that defect resolved. And I guess I feel like I'm someone who's, a results-based or a resolution-based person or solutions-based person. So it's really about getting that problem fixed. It's not just about highlighting 20 defects. It's about, okay, we've got these defects. Is it urgent? Do I need to jump on this as a short-term priority? And then who do I go to get that resolved? That's what it is. It's that full circle, approach.
Absolutely. And I want to take you back to something you said, because I think the average punter might not realise it, because they might get 3 or 4 different for building inspection, right? They go look at this company, gyms, whatever, and they probably don't realise there's a difference between what they're actually getting and who's coming out to do it. So do you want to just outline that clearly for people?
100%. Yeah. So it is an unregulated space, unfortunately. I feel like the integrity in this industry in elsewhere is maybe questionable. I think there may be, it's really important. As I said, it's one of the biggest purchases of your life. So why wouldn't you want an inspector that you're going to trust? Okay. You want to know what their background is. Do they have a background in building, in engineering, in certification, in building surveying, related fields and also in Australia, okay? It's important to understand how we build things in Australia may be different to other countries. So having that knowledge about areas of construction, having that knowledge about how things are built and common problems with certain types of construction is really important, okay? Especially in New South Wales now, obviously, in all of Australia, we've got these new government incentives, okay, for first-home buyers. So often when they're getting into that entry level in the market, those types of properties may present certain defects, okay? But yeah, it's really about showing them sample reports is important too, okay? So they can literally compare, okay, what am I getting for $50 cheaper versus what Laura is going to provide? And which report would I rather read? Who would I rather deal with?
Yeah. So I think the average punter would assume it's a regulated industry, right? Because it's building inspection, 100%. Right? So you'd think it would be, just as an outsider, you think it would be regulated. So it's surprising that it's not, which is why it's even more important to really know who you're dealing with for these reports, because it's quite important.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
And then you mentioned apartments as well. So apartments obviously now with incentives and first-time buyers and a lot of apartments, and there'll be a lot of things going up. So I haven't really asked building inspectors much about the apartment side of it. So do you want to talk about that? Yeah.
So obviously I've seen a massive increase the last probably 6 months, and particularly post-October when a lot of these incentives kicked in, doing a lot more apartments, townhouses, that type of housing stock. And it's because, first home buyers, that's kind of where they're getting into the market often, Obviously, when you buy into a strata scheme, you become part of that strata scheme, okay? So any issues or defects that are being uncovered, you've got to multiply that and have as a compounding effect across that whole property. Common defect areas in those types of buildings, we're looking at failed waterproofing, especially external waterproofing and internal waterproofing, is really a suite of defects that can be experienced in those types of buildings, concrete cancer, that type of thing. But it's having the knowledge that when you're buying into that, you're becoming part of it. And so it's a really important thing to do, in my opinion. I think there's a bit of a misconception in the industry that if you've got a strata report, then that's all you really need. I've heard it from buyers agents and conveyancers, even still to this day. We've got a strata report, so it should be pretty good. As a certifier, I've seen these types of buildings be approved and how they're built, and depending on the era of construction, they can be done really well. As again, there's really great builders out there, and there's not so good builders. So it really depends on what you're buying, and what you're looking at. So have
you noticed an increase in the general public awareness around what you guys do now? Because there's obviously a lot more, I think, stuff online, and there's current affair. There seems to be a builder getting chased every week or something.
Yep,
something going on.
100%. I think there's definitely there's more awareness around it. There's more people talk more. There's and there's certain won't name any names, but there's certain YouTube stars that have definitely brought things to light in the industry. I also think that it's a space where maybe more builders are getting into that are just tired of being on the tools. It's a very tough, challenging space to be in. So everyone's looking for other avenues, and other pathways to get into. So I think it's great that we're getting more awareness around it. I think it's a no-brainer. If you're dropping, that amount of money on anything, you should be doing your due diligence. I think it's great.
And reports you find yourself doing more of? So there's obviously the pre-purchase, which would be your bread and butter stuff. And you mentioned pool safety. What else are you doing?
Yeah, so my every day for me looks different, which I love. I don't like having the same day on repeat. So my days could be, pre-purchase inspections, could be a pool consulting job, could be pool certification, could be dilapidation reports. So it's really a variety. It's nice little diversity in what I do.
Pool consulting, tell me about that.
Yeah, so with my pool consulting, it's a bit of a niche space. So basically getting engaged by architects, by builders. The moment I'm doing some some high-end sort of rooftop pools for hotels and bigger sort of developments, which is exciting. You're basically client side. You're helping them achieve proactive design compliance at the design phase. So I guess as a certifier, I've seen, time and time again, we get to that final inspection at the end of the job. The swimming pool fencing is generally an afterthought. Okay, we're thinking about other things and aesthetics and all of that, and we forget about compliance. We forget about making sure that's going to comply. And on a high-end job, that can be an absolute nightmare where you're dealing with, level changes and, glass and things like that you really have to get right up front. You don't have that avenue to kind of fix things down at the back end, and it's costly. Those non-compliances, whilst they're annoying, they're also really, really costly. So getting things done right from the beginning is really important. So we're really talking about having compliance demonstrated on the plans and getting things right from the beginning. And that way, that flow on effect as things change during the build, which they inevitably do, that's the nature of building. We're more sure that we're going to have a compliant product at the end, less headaches at the end, less money spent that, didn't need to be spent at that back end of the project. Certifier can come in, certify it that it complies, and it's just a bit more of a streamlined, easier, less painful process.
And training and knowledge, you guys obviously have to keep learning all the time. So how do you keep up with everything? Because there's always, I presume, changes to the code, or these things, being updated.
Yeah, really good question. So me, as an accredited certifier in New South Wales, I've got to do CPD, or continuing professional development. So we've got to do a certain number of, conferences and workshops and things like that. I also work closely with the Building Commission as an independent reviewer of new training material coming into play for swimming pool compliance. So you've sort of got to have your finger on the pulse because things are changing. We do have a new standard coming in for safety barriers for pools next year. So yeah, it's important to stay, up to date with that knowledge and know what's coming. Things are always evolving and changing in building, and you have to stay on that cusp. It's just inevitable, I think you can't be complacent in this industry. You can't say, well, we've done this for 40 years. We've always done it like that. It was always approved like that. Again, these are minimum requirements that we're trying to adhere to, and we're trying to, really surpass that. These requirements and rules are in there for a reason. Okay. So, it's about staying up to date. And also the benefit of being in the Gyms Network is that we've got so many people from different diverse backgrounds that we can lean on, which is great. That's what we want.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast, and sorry for the interruption. This is the host, Joel Kleber. I've got a real quick favour to ask you. We've had more than 50,000 downloads across our podcast over the years, but not many reviews. So we just need people to take the time to do us a favour. If you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Really helps the show. Now back to the podcast. And how do you and the other franchisees get along up in where you are?
I hate them all.
You don't like them all?
Nah.
I met a couple of them.
I only hate one of them. No.
You don't name names? Name names?
Nah.
You name names?
That Peter bloke's a bit of an idiot. Yeah.
He's sitting off camera. So
I hate Pete.
He proves it. It's all good.
Yeah. Why do you think he left? No, I'm joking. No, it's great. Look, it's there's some really great individuals in what we do, which is fantastic. You're working independently, but you are still part of a team. And that's what you want. I think it's hard being a one-man band type operator in any field, but especially in building. And the way that things have trended, I think, especially the last 10 years, it's so admin heavy. We've got planning portals. We've got all these things in the back end that can be difficult to navigate. And so in any field in building, I think the more knowledge, the more diversity that you have, that's your edge. That's your edge in the industry. And I think that's our edge in the Gyms Network. We've got engineers, certifiers, many ex-builders and current builders. And so, things are always evolving and changing. You need to be on the cusp of that, I think, in anything that you do, and not be complacent. Always be curious. Always ask a question when you don't know the answer to it. So,
and I think people also, when they engage or looking at other people, you guys actually own the business. You're not just an employee sent out who might not
100%
care as much.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's that danger in, you're sending out a subby to do 3, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 inspections in a day.
Which is nuts.
How much care are they putting into that job? How much do they want to, as I said, get on the phone to you and talk about it? They don't want to, because they're trying to get the other 5 or 6 inspections done. So there's that integrity, I guess, in what we do, that care in what we do. And it's your face and your name at the end of the day. It's your reputation. So, yeah, it's important to uphold that,
Well, from hearing what's involved with your reports, it surprised me that people would even cheap out or even question pricing, because I think knowing what I, from hearing you guys speak about, just the difference in the level of it for something that's worth so much money, people want to skimp out sometimes, I guess, on that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think
does that surprise you? Because
it baffles me every day. Every day I'm having that conversation, unfortunately. Look, a lot of my work now is becoming more referral based. So people are referred to me because, Laura helped us. She did a great job. Like, her report was thorough. She got on the phone with us, and that person then knows that level of customer service. But sometimes you're still having that conversation where, it's a purely a monetary thing. And, when the entry price of buying a house or an apartment in Sydney is what it is, it is baffling to me that we're still having that discussion. I think in anything that you do, you have to sort of understand or do a reasonable level of research into what you're getting for what you pay. So I think the sample report and seeing what that inspector is actually going to give you is really important. But you're really going to get a vibe on the phone straight off the bat. Is that inspector someone who's taking their time on the phone with you, or are they rushing through the conversation? Are you going to be able to get them on the phone? Okay. I hear so much. I get asked to do, second opinion type reports where the client's had a vendor report provided to them from a real estate agent, and they can't get a hold of that inspector to go through those questions. It happens all the time. So that's something that's just, it's built into our processes. It's in our emails, once we send the report, when can I get you on the phone to speak to you about it? It's part of our process. It's just a minimum thing of what we do, minimum standard of what we do. And
there's always accountability, because you've got the brand and your franchisors and stuff involved as well. So customers need to know it's not just you. There's an accountability system built in behind the whole thing.
Exactly, 100%.
And I was going to say as well, doing what you've been doing, you don't have to say income-wise, but you've been happy with everything you've been doing?
Yeah.
Yep. Good.
100%.
Short answer I like. We won't go into it too much.
A Maltese. What are you expecting from me?
And are you happy with, like, in regards to the service for the fee you pay? Because obviously we're a flat fee model, and we always say with franchising, don't give Jim all the money, do it yourself, all that sort of stuff. So
I was very concerned about that coming into it. To be honest with you, it was one of those things that I was wary about. But I did my due diligence. I took it to my lawyer. I took it to my accountant, and spoke to Peter. Spoke to Uncle Pete. But it's geared towards you being successful. It's geared towards you, being in this long term. And the biggest test for me, like, I really went out. I wanted to speak to franchisees themselves, like, because they're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones that have been in it for X amount of time, and doing that and going out with those guys and sitting down with them and actually speaking to them about it, like, that was the biggest benefit to me. And how forthcoming they all were in providing that information and being transparent told me straight off the bat, if they're being transparent and they're telling me what's good about it, then I felt more rest assured, I guess, and it also gave me confidence in the types of people that are already doing this. And then I could see myself integrate into that. Okay. And that was really important for me.
And when we did the podcast last time until now, what have you learnt as a business owner between? Has there been any things that you've learnt significantly or changed in your business, or?
That's a good question. I feel like...
Give context for people. We did this, I think, a year ago, or we did a year and a half ago. We interviewed on Zoom.
Yeah, I think I've just settled into things more. No day looks the same, and I'm someone who's always learning, so no property is the same either. So you're always sort of going, okay, they've done this way, that's why this defect's resulted, or, things like that. So I'm someone who's always looking to keep learning, and I think it's just probably, as you grow and as you learn, you're a higher value person, I guess, as you keep going. But I think it's just more so getting used to the systems and procedures, that sort of, it's more second nature now, So, but I feel like I'm someone who was always kind of, I guess, confident in what I know, confident in my skill set. So it's really just building upon that foundation of what I already know. And I guess, with new franchisees coming on, you can help bring them on board and things like that. And that's always a nice part of it.
And how have you built you mentioned referrals, which is great. You're obviously doing fantastic work. So most of your work now comes via via referral. So how do you get so many?
Yeah, so look, there's been a few things that's come about in, like a lot of it's just word of mouth. I'm also part of some networking groups like BNI and things like that, which have been game changers for me.
Now, how does that work for you? Because BNI, some people like it or they don't like it. So how's BNI worked and helped your business? Yeah,
so BNI, again, I was very skeptical that it was a cult. But basically, look, BNI, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a networking system where you go to weekly meetings with other business owners, and it's very similar to the gym's model, where it's built on givers gain. It's built on providing, quality and value to people. And if you can help someone else, then maybe down the track they'll help you back as well. So it's basically still built on that model. But that's really helped with me just getting in front of people and getting in front of, especially people in the property space, buyers, agents, conveyancers, solicitors, things like that. And really honing in on the people that I want to work with. Okay. So that's been great for me. And really, I've made some really great connections through that space, and really honed in on the cream jobs, I guess the ones that I really want to be doing. And it's been really good for that. And just in my general confidence, I guess, too, in getting in front of people and putting yourself out of your comfort zone every week. You've got to do a weekly presentation or a quick spiel about yourself, what referral requests you'd like for that week. So it's been good for me, I think, and just building out my network as well in Sydney. I had a great network of in the building space and trades. This has helped me build out, property lawyers and buyers agents and brokers. And I think if you're someone who's well connected and you can help people resolve a problem, you become more valuable to them. So especially in property, with first home buyers, again, very, can be very nervous and skeptical. If you can then help them from start to finish holistically, they're going to come back to you in the future and they're going to tell their friends about it, which is, what you want.
Absolutely. And what's something you want property owners or people watching this to take away in regards to your industry or your point of difference?
Just do your research. Not all inspectors are created equal. So it's really important to get a good gauge on what you're actually paying for, okay, and what you're going to get back in return. Communication's the biggest thing, okay, making sure that you are working with someone that, hasn't just used ChatGPT to generate their report.
which it's funny you say, because we weren't talking about it a year and a half ago, but I can imagine now it would be,
I've personally seen reports where they've left the prompts in there, or they've left would you like a more polished version of this in the final report? So, what are you getting? Like, you really want to be able to deal with someone that can explain and back up why that defect is in the report and what the repercussions are, and if that's common for that era of building, and how to resolve it. Like, how to resolve it. What, and do I need to resolve that in 3 months' time or 6 months' time? That is where they need to weigh up budget and urgency. And educating people about what they're buying. It's not just telling them the defects, but it's telling them, okay, how can I look after this property the best way? I'm going to hold it for 10 years. So how can I look after it? How can I make sure it's going to be a great investment for me? Those really simple things, I think are really important. So you've just got to do your research and make sure you're dealing with someone with integrity. That's in a nutshell what I could say.
I just want to go over that one more time because it'll make a great clip. So non-gyms building inspectors are using ChatGPT to write reports, and some of them don't even take the time to remove the prompt or some of the questions they're asking into AI. And they're dishing that up to clients, and you've seen them.
I've seen it firsthand. Yeah, wow. Pretty scary when you're dropping 1 million plus on a property, and the inspector's been there for 20 minutes. So
that is amazing. You'd think there'd be some sort of accountability for that, as you said, but it's an unregulated industry. So what sort of can happen besides a customer leaving them a bad review, I guess? It's quite astounding to me that happens.
That's right. Yeah. So it's a scary thing. Always ask for a sample report. Always get an idea of how that inspector goes about what they do. Ask them, how long do you spend on site? Like, that question alone could be, the difference in a 20-minute inspection versus an hour and a half. It's the difference in identifying a major defect versus not identifying a major defect. It's a difference in identifying there's termite damage or live termite activity or not identifying that. These are tens of thousands of dollars that we're talking about. These are not small issues. So also the tools that they're using. I've seen inspectors go out with no moisture meter, no ladder, nothing basically to kind of back up what they're saying. It is a visual inspection, but we do use tools to help us gather evidence on the site, you know, whether it's thermal imaging or moisture meters to back up and show, you know, this is a high moisture level versus not, okay? And that supports why it's a major defect and why it's not, okay? So
it's amazing for me to hear that. So you're saying some building inspection rock up with not even moisture meter or thermal imaging, then but they're still commenting on.
I've seen it firsthand in a property that I sold in the past. That you know, before coming into this industry, the real estate agent said, "Yeah, we've got this great inspector. We'll get them out." You know, he was there for 15 minutes, no moisture meter, no ladder, none of that. I knew about the defects in the property. You know, and we had things like failing retaining walls and things like that. I was worried about seeing on this report and thought for sure they're going to be there, and they just weren't there on the report. So. Not all inspectors are created equal, so it's super important to do your due diligence and really just vet who you're engaging to do that inspection for you.
Well, that's a good point. I think it's really important for the purchaser to get an independent person, not with the recommendation of, you know, maybe the real estate agent or someone else related to the
100%. And I think that is what's changing in the industry. I think the value of an independent report. I believe I've seen something from Fair Trading come out where they're pushing for people to get independent inspections. At the end of the day, it's your choice as to what you want to get, whether you're ticking a box or whether you really want to, you know, learn about what you're buying. And really just it's comprehensive or it's not comprehensive, you know. So, it's super important, and I think that it's a no-brainer. Just get a gauge on. Yeah, even Google reviews can be super important as well.
Yes.
You know, understanding how that person operates is really important.
I think the sample report for me, that's the one thing I've learned. And if you don't know, ChatGPT likes to put these little thing called M dashes in it. So if you see a report for a lot of these little dashes in between it, you know it's AI, and that's a good giveaway as well.
That's right.
But people leaving the prompt in astounds me. They don't even delete the prompt.
Yeah, it was my favourite one.
That was nuts. Is there anything, Laura, that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you today?
No, I think we've covered it. Thanks, Joel.
Well, it's great to see you again from being... Actually, I will end with one question. Like just, you know, franchise review now, how's it been for you? Because you said you were looking at doing an independent business yourself at the start compared to going this route. So obviously you've got that, you know, business mindset. So how's it sort of been being a part of the system for this time? Yeah,
I think... I haven't really looked back, to be honest. I'm really glad I did it. I'm glad I did it at the time I did it. You can always look back and say, I wish I did it earlier, but I learnt so much from the industries and the spaces and the roles I was in previously. I think the top three things that I love about what I'm doing now is just definitely having more balance in my life, which is great, having the support around me and like-minded people around me that are, you know, that we can lean on is great. Being able to take leave is nice.
Okay.
I think that's really important. I think it's really important. I'm someone who, you know, I work really, really hard, but I also need that time to kind of disconnect and do something else. I'm also someone who, I don't like having the same day over and over. So, and I'm playing in different fields. You know, one day might be all pools, the next day might be pre-purchase. So, having that diversity in what I do, and you know, there's so many services that we can provide that that's a really great thing. And I guess, the third thing is just that flexibility, you know, in what we do. So they're the top three things for me.
Plus, you're a muso as well.
Yeah,
still playing.
I'm still playing. Yeah, still playing. So so professional guitarist in the meantime. And again, that comes in with the flexibility. I can kind of build my schedule around what I've got going on in that space, and that's just a nice. Like I love having that ability to kind of switch off the building mind and turn on the guitar shredding.
And what do you normally play?
So I'm at the Marble Bar at the Hilton Hotel every Wednesday night. Been there for 13 years.
13 years?
13 years, yeah. And then we do weddings and private stuff and lots of different gigs. So I think we were going to have a jam last time we said, and we didn't do that.
Yeah, we didn't do that, no. I didn't bring my guitar.
You didn't bring guitar.
I should have.
Convenient.
I'm lying to you.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
I'm left-handed, so it's all good.
Good excuse. I love it.
But Laura, thank you very much for your time today coming down from Sydney for this. We really appreciate it as well. And it's great to know just the quality of people we have in the gyms group. It's just awesome to hear, and especially the pool safety stuff. I think people have got to take that a lot more seriously as well. And guys, if you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. Call 131-546 or head to gyms.net and use any one of our great building inspectors from across the country. So really appreciate your time today.
Legend. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you leave a rating, a review, comment, share it with friends and family. And if you are interested in becoming a gyms franchisee, just call 131-546 or head to gyms.net and put an inquiry, and we'll be in touch soon.